Hello, welcome to my podcast, Behavioral Brilliance. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Piper Merrill. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I have 30 years of pediatric healthcare experience, and I am here to help just share some ideas on how to develop mental and emotional health in children. And I would like to just make a statement that this is an educational podcast. I won't be prescribing or diagnosing. And I am an advocate of medications is the last resort. I don't think kids are broke. I don't think people are broke that have anxiety, depression, and I don't like all the labels. So I think we really have to get to the root of, I think a lot of systems are broken in our world, and let's fix the system. And medication is a last resort. So I would say, I say that on several of my podcasts. So I never want you to stop a medication if you're on that. Always consult with your provider, your healthcare provider first. Just wanted to say this is educational, and I'm so glad you're here. This will be great. So the last podcast, we talked on positive discipline. What is that? What does that look like? What does that mean? And today I will review what positive discipline is, and then I will also go into how do we implement positive discipline. So how do we develop children that make healthy decisions? How do we build self-leadership skills and motivate the kids to want to make healthy decisions? So that's what positive discipline is. It's parenting on purpose. So intentionally deciding, when you come together as young adults, I don't think always we talk about how do you want to parent? How do you want to parent? I think you just think we get married, we have kids, and all that'll come natural. I don't think that really happens. So positive discipline is the mindset of parenting on purpose. We are building a future successful child. What skills do they need in order to do life? Life is much about relationships. Relationship with the parent and the child, the relationship with friends, coworkers. How do they view authority? How do they take feedback? How do they have quality conversations? Something deeper than the weather. How do they talk about their feelings? This is what a family unit is for. This is what we want to teach our kids young, because that is much of what they're going to have to manage in life as an adult. So our goal as the home and the parenting is to build that relationship with the child. And so positive discipline, I'll review a little bit of what we talked about last week, is instead of parenting by default, which I think is the easier, I think it's just the more natural way, in the moment-by-moment stressors of life, we're like, Johnny, pick up your shoes, go put them away. Come on, we got to go, get out the door. What do you mean you're coloring on the wall? I told you not to color on the wall. Like, I get it, right? It's because we have a system, we have an agenda, we have plans, things we need to get through. He's 3 or 4. I don't even know. He's 13. She is. They're not always on the same wavelength as we are, right? So it's in that moment by moment life that we tend to parent. And so what messages are we communicating? We really want to communicate clearly with our kids. We want to give a message of, you're amazing. You have skills. You can do this. But we also need to teach them there are some things we just have to do. We want to be on time. That shows good leadership skill. So maybe we need to plan the night before. You have a soccer game. Okay, remember we talked about you cleaning your room, and I don't see that that's happened. So I think it's going to be hard for you to go in there and find your soccer equipment, right? And then us get out the door on time. So maybe that is why mom and dad are saying, I really would like you to keep your room clean, because when it's time to go to the soccer game, I don't want you stressed out before the game. I want you to be able to be relaxed. I have my equipment. My mind can be focused on the game, the team, and you get there and you're in a good mood instead of now mom and dad are saying, it's time to go. And you're like, well, I don't know where my uniform is. Oh my gosh, it needs to be washed. Oh my goodness. Right? These are the things we've got to teach them, the why behind the what. When we ask them and say, I want your room clean, let's take the time to communicate the why. I can say many times growing up, my father, he went to college. I think he was in his 30s, but the message they gave us as kids is be quiet. Be quiet. Your dad's studying. It wasn't. Instead of communicating, you know what? I really want to be able to provide for you guys. I want to make better money for the family. I want to be able to provide what you guys want, not just what you need. So I'm going to go back to college, but I need quiet because it's hard for me to study when you guys are screaming or playing or it's loud. Do you see the difference? The message that I received was kids are seen but not heard, right? Instead of, no, we value you and we want to go back to school so that we can get degrees and kind of help you and be able to support you and give you things that we didn't have. So it's important that we communicate with our kids in a clear, concise, and calm way and actually explain them the why behind the what. I think that's very important. And we talked about in positive discipline, there's 5 criteria when you're communicating with your child, if you'll keep these in mind. And I think actually I'm very visual. So I have a board that I put that up because you know what? These aren't just good for parent-child relationship. These are good for all relationships. So I keep a board with these questions on there. Is it respectful? Is it kind? You can be firm with the child and still be kind. It's the heart behind the words. Am I angry when I'm communicating or am I feeling love? It's important. It's important. Does it help the children feel belonging? Do they feel like they're a part of a team? That's what belonging is. We all want to be a part of a team. We can say our tribe. Who's our tribe? Significance. Are we each feeling valued in the family? Do I have value? It's important. And we can explain to our kids what you bring to the family, what you contribute to the family is important. And I want you to know your attitude matters. So if you're stressed because your room isn't clean and now you can't find what you need, and so now and another situation is maybe you've procrastinated and so now you're trying to study and now you're stressed, you have a test tomorrow. But how does that behavior play out in the family? We tend to take it out on everybody else because we're stressed, because we procrastinated. There again, explaining to them, that's not going to make you feel good the next day after your test. You're going to kind of feel guilty. Mom and dad don't want you feeling guilty. That will play out later in your relationships. You will then again procrastinate at work, and then that makes you stressed. And do you take that out on everybody else that you're working with? So the skills, the life skills we are developing in our children is because we are thinking of the future adult that they will be. That will help us as parents parent on purpose, right? In those moments when we get stressed, stress is a reality. It's a part of life. We talked last time. It's very important. Take a deep breath. It actually lowers the heart rate. So it lets your body and your brain know there's no danger here. Stress is the brain perceiving a threat. So all the hormones get excited, the handshake, the anger starts, the frustration starts. So you've got to calm yourself so you can then speak in a calm manner to Johnny or Sally. So it's important. The other thing with positive, it's a mind shift for positive discipline, is truly valuing and respecting the role of a parent. That's a very powerful position. You think back to your childhood. Many people struggle with the parent-child relationship. Was there abuse in the family? Was there anger? When the parents disciplined, did they do it out of anger? So there was too much negative energy behind that discipline. It didn't really feel like they were disciplining me. It felt like they were taking out other unhealed issues on me, right? So it's so important that you realize the role of a parent and the value of a parent. Anything that is of value is an investment. It'll take your time. It'll take intentionality. It's going to take you thinking it through. What kind of adult do I want to produce? And that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to plant seeds today and I'm going to water them tomorrow. And I may not see the fruit till later. But I guarantee If you develop that relationship and you keep the parent-child relationship in mind, you're going to have a good outcome. That's what all the research shows. Everything in life that has value requires effort and intentional energy. Let's parent by design. How do we do that? I think keeping the end in mind. I said this on the last podcast, but I think this is important for you to, let's visualize that child at 20 years old. What kind of relationship do you want with them? Connected, warm, confident, respectful? Am I creating this? Am I modeling that? What kind of person do you want them to be? Caring, confident, curious? If every time they touch something that might be fragile, might break, and we scream or we scare or we jump, they're not going to want to be curious. We want a curious child. So we want to control our emotions, right? So that we react in the right way. We want an empathetic child. We want someone who's engaged, accepting, respectful of others' feelings. There again, we're teaching them as a family unit. Your behavior matters to the family. Do you bring a good attitude when you come to breakfast? Do you bring a good attitude at dinner time? Are they going to always do this? No. But in those moments, we're going to be patient. We're going to be empathetic. Did you have a hard day today? Did someone say something that maybe hurt your feelings? Those conversations at the dinner table, they're important. They're important, and it takes a lot of self-control. I do get that. It does. But it's worth it. There again, it's worth it. And remembering, this goes really in life in general. Connection before correction. There again, relationship. You can win the battle, but if you lose the relationship, you really haven't won, right? So out of that mindset again, I said last time, we kind of throw around, choose your battles with the kids, but then we make that like it's if it's a war zone or like it is a fight. And a parent as a bigger person, you will probably win, but there again, what are you winning in that moment? Hopefully you're winning their heart, because that's your goal, is to win the heart of the child, that they know you have their best interest in mind. And you're going to help develop the character and the skills that they need to make the right choices. Kids don't come into this world knowing boundaries, right? That's what we're going to teach them. What's acceptable behavior? That's what boundaries are. What am I responsible for as the parent? What are they responsible for as the child? Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. Townsend state in their book of Boundaries, character is formed in relationship. Seeing the children as people that are respectable, worthy of respect, helping children make good decisions on their own, giving children the skills they need to make healthy choices, building confidence. I think this is important, and I'm fortunate to be in a leadership church that we are so intentional about really pulling out the strengths in others. Many times we feel like people just point out what's wrong, or we just point out what's wrong with ourselves. We don't tend to look at our strengths. So looking at Johnny and saying, you know what, you are strong. I know sometimes you get anxious and that makes you feel weak, but you're a strong young man, and you're going to learn how to manage your anxiety and stress, and we're going to learn together. Finding kind words, finding their strengths, and they're not going to see those just as we don't see our strengths. And many times they're going to be comparing their weaknesses to other strengths. I think I did that a lot growing up. I would look at other people and think, wow, they just have it so together. They speak easily in front of a group. I struggled with that. I had to work on that, and I put a lot of energy into that and time. So I would think it comes easy to everybody else, right? And that's what your kids are learning, just as you're still learning. We all have insecurities. So pulling out their strengths, be intentional about pointing out what they do right. Many times we point out what they do wrong because their bad behavior is usually what causes pain for us, right? They're not doing what I need them to do so I can finish other things that I need to get done. So sometimes the misbehaving is what we tend to point out the most. So let's be intentional to point out the positives and not just the negatives. How can I create these qualities in Johnny or Susie? Setting boundaries for kids, letting them know what they're responsible for. I think this is important. I've said it before, but they're responsible for their own feelings, behaviors, and attitudes. They learn who they are and what they're responsible for through relationships and clear expectations. So instead of the punishment reward system, it's basically teaching them choices and consequences. And when they've made a choice that maybe is not a healthy choice or it hasn't been a productive choice, it's never healthy to say, I told you so. I hear couples. I just had a couple in the other day, and they have a new baby, and they're trying to figure it out. That's a hard time when you have a new baby. Your hormones are crazy. You're not sleeping. You're overwhelmed with the responsibility of I am really a parent. Like, oh my goodness. But the mother, I don't even remember what mom said, but dad said, I told you so. And I said, no, you can't do that. Because that's never a healthy form of communication. None of us want to hear that. So I think it's important we don't say to Johnny, I told you that wasn't going to work out. It's finding out what made them make that choice. What were you thinking, John, when you decided to do that? Was it just a reaction? How could you have done it differently? And what would the consequences have been had you made a different choice? Now, here's the hard part for parents. They don't always want to allow the behavior to have a consequence because we don't like our kids to suffer. It is hard to watch kids suffer. However, we all know there is suffering in life. And if we always try to heal their pain, take away the suffering from their choices, what are they going to learn? Mom and dad are going to fix it, right? So it really doesn't matter what choices I make in life because mom's going to fix it, dad's going to fix it. And many times parents fix their kids' suffering because sometimes it's about the parent. I had a situation that a young man had caused an alarm to go off in a school, and it set off a lot of trouble for the school. And the parent was involved with the school system, and they went behind and fixed it. So he didn't have to suffer the consequences of that choice. And I would ask the parent, I wonder what that child learned from that situation. It put him out of his pain immediately, but what message was given to him in that? Next time he gets into a situation that he needs to make a choice, what kind of choices is he going to make? So we're giving messages every day to our kids. We can't fix their problems. They need to own the choice. They problem solve, help them problem solve so they can fix it, learn from it, and then move on. Another thing we need to remember how we're going to implement these qualities, children need warmth. So firm but caring and warm, a sense of safety and security. We don't want to demean with our words, never take away love when you're in the middle of a correction. Empathize with how they feel. I am so sorry you made that choice. I know if in the heat of the moment, right, you probably let your emotions make that choice and not your thinking. I probably have done that at times too. I'm so sorry though you made the choice because this is the consequence. If you speed, you get a ticket. Don't go fix the tickets for them. That's a consequence of you're teaching them. I chose to speed. I know the rules. I know the boundaries, and I chose otherwise. It's important that we're teaching this young because here's what you need to think about. The consequences before the age of 18 are much less than after 18. Now you don't only speed. Now you have a couple drinks, and then you speed. Now you have a DWI. That's a felony. That goes on your record. That affects your jobs. So this is where parenting is so valuable. We've got to teach choices and consequences and allow some suffering. I'm going to teach on that on the next podcast. How do we not take the pain away from our kids? That's why parents don't set boundaries, is we have such a hard time watching them suffer. But we know it's through our suffering a lot of times that we learn the valuable lessons in life. The other way is understand how they learn and feel at each stage of life. So it is important to consider the stage they're at. Kids need structure. Structure is all about communication and information to help them succeed. seeing the child as a learner. They have so much to learn. They're new. They don't know anything about this life. And I think many times as parents, because we have learned a lot in life, and sometimes we've learned, unfortunately, a lot of the negative in life, we tend to want to share all that with them, or we parent out of fear. I'm going to protect you from everything. We can't protect Johnny from everything. You're not going to go to college with them, and if you protect them and they never experience a hurt in a relationship, a disappointment when they're young, what happens when they go to college and now they're devastated? No one ever treated me this way. Well, they did, but I kind of made up for it, and I kind of went and talked to that parent, and that fixed that relationship. Instead of having Johnny go talk to that child, I went and talked to the parent. So see, where we've got to teach them how to manage hurt feelings, have that quality relationship, be able to do conflict resolution. We know in life in general, you're going to need to know how to solve a conflict with our words. I think many times that's where the physical fights come in, is when people have not learned how to have an adult conversation that feels vulnerable, and they haven't learned how to use words. One of my bosses told me him and his brother fought physically until they were in their 30s. And I said, because you never learned how to use your words. You were never taught to feel vulnerable. I tell couples, it's easy in the heat of the moment. You're having a heated discussion. Your emotions are high. You're probably not going to solve the problem right then, right? You're not going to really get to the core of the issue in that moment. You're probably going to say hurtful things. So it's important to say, time out. I need a break. But here's where many times what doesn't happen that needs to happen. You take a break, you calm down, you're not in the height of that emotion. Now it feels very vulnerable to come back and have that mature conversation. When you said this, I heard this. This was the message that I heard from that. Well, that's not the message I meant for you to hear. I'm so sorry you heard that. I'm sorry I received it that way. You're not responsible for how I feel. Do you see how that brings healing to a relationship? Same with our kids. In the heat of the moment, when you're frustrated, Johnny's frustrated, you're probably not going to get to the core teaching moment. So let's take time, call a timeout, go your own ways. But there again, with the children, you need to go back to the quality conversation of the why behind the what. This is why I need you to do so-and-so, because later it's going to matter in life. So structure is important, clear communication, clear expectations. So here's just an example that I thought was interesting. So a 3-year-old caregiver nanny took this 3-year-old boy to the mall. And immediately when they got to the mall, he got out of the car and ran in the street to the mall. And the nanny gets home and she's like, I'm never taking Johnny to the mall again. This will not work. He is out of control. He, just starts, berating the child. It's about his bad behavior, everything going on. So here's how positive discipline would come into this. The mother said, well, let's talk to Johnny. Let's find out what's going on. So she asked Johnny, why do you run when you get to the mall? He said, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I just want to get in the mall. I'm so excited about being there. So the problem isn't that he's trying to be bad. He just gets so excited. He doesn't have the self-control that we've learned as adults, right? So mom said, well, here's my problem with that. Johnny, cars can't see you. You are really short and the cars can't see you. And I don't want you getting hit by a car. That would hurt you really bad. So what are some ways we can handle this? How can we manage this? If I want to take you to the mall, what can we do? Can we think of something that will help you not run? Here's what the child said, which I think kids can be so profound. He said, what if I had a teddy bear or something to hold on to? I could hold on to that teddy bear and squeeze him. And I think I would think about the teddy bear and then I wouldn't run. And so I say many times, help children solve these problems. He does need to know that when he goes to the mall, you can't run. But the answer isn't getting on to him, right, and punishing him for it. And the answer is also not taking him to the mall. The answer is teaching, right? Which takes time, it takes energy, and it takes effort. So we need to change our mindset. Children are not bad. They're not bad. They're misbehaving because we go back to Alder's theory. They're just trying to get their belonging and their significance. Where do I fit into this tribe? Where's my team? What's my significance? Where's my boundaries? What's acceptable? And that's what they're trying to learn. So creating that warm environment, creating structure for the child, explaining the why behind the what, treasuring the relationship, those are parts of being a positive discipline. Being fair and flexible. Ask yourself sometimes, do I have unrealistic expectations for the age that they're at? Allowing them to understand their actions and behaviors on others, giving them information, avoiding threats, and taking away love. This is so important. Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. Townsend wrote a great book that I would recommend. It's Boundaries for Kids, Boundaries with Children. In that book, he says a lack of boundaries for children leads to impulse problems, addictions, and irresponsibilities. So even though it's challenging to set those boundaries and then to keep those boundaries, we have to follow through, right? We have to follow through for who we're building later in life. So I'm going to stop here, and I do look forward to you joining the next podcast. Thank you for joining this, and I hope you have a great day. Let's build successful young adults that can do quality relationships later in life. Have a great day.